Welcome to the Strength Lab podcast. I am your host, Tyler Ramsey, and my guest today is Grant Horne. He is a bodybuilder and a online fitness coach. Along with that, he has the hardest job of all is being a dad. So we're going to dive into some bodybuilding uh, and then some training approaches and kind of how he got ready for his latest bodybuilding show and talk some training, nutrition, supplementation. How you doing, Grant? You're a little you're muted.
Oh, you got me here now?
Yeah, we're good now.
Here we
I
go,
can hear you.
baby.
You're
Let's
good.
go.
You're good. How you doing
Appreciate
today?
you having me on today, man.
Yeah, you're welcome. Should be a good episode. Got a lot to cover, a lot to talk about. Try to make some people a little bit better, a little stronger, a little mindful of some things when they're in the gym.
Let's friggin' do it.
What inspired you to become a bodybuilder and online trainer?
Man, so we're gonna have to take it back to when I was a kid. So, man, I have always been extremely fascinated with just getting better. And that shit started, I'm talking when I was like 8 years old. I used to sneak into my mom's bedroom and she had these little 5 pound turquoise weights, dude. And I would steal them and go into my room and just like I would crank away because I would see pro athletes and I'd look at my action figures and how like jacked they were. And I'm like, that is what I want to be. So growing up, I was always super athletic, involved in sports, and always wanting to better myself, continuously pushing myself. And then eventually, I went from, I had this passion. I wanted to be a pro baseball player. And then, as time progressed and that dream started to fade away, I was like, well, what other route can I pursue? And it's like, dude, I love fitness. So it kind of shot me into this trajectory to the first goal was to own my own gym. I wanted to own my own gym. And when I moved down here in Bloomington in 2011, I got linked up working at Gold's Gym. After doing just some front desk work, I switched into personal training, and then I became the general manager. Then I took on my second gym, and it's kind of all history from there. That's where the origin story started.
Nice. Did you have any big influences when you first were getting into that? I know that we've talked about Mike Trotter. He was at Gold's Gym, and he's going to be on a podcast in the next week or two. So we'll get to hear from him. But is there anybody um, else in the fitness industry that you kind of looked up to or were your influence?
So, kind of early on in my, fitness obsession, I didn't have a specific individual that really kind of I leaned towards. I was just really big into professional sports.
Okay.
And the way I looked at it, man, I would see all these professional athletes, and I was like, the way to be a professional athlete is to get freaking jacked. Because,
Yeah.
they were all huge. When it comes to Mike Trotter actually gave me the kick in the ass to get into personal training because
Okay.
we had a team meeting at the gym and we were doing these group sessions where we're doing kind of walkthroughs, different processes that we had. And when I got into his group, I gave my little spiel and he just looked at me and he said, dude, why the hell aren't you a personal trainer? And I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to be. What do I got to do? And he kind of led me into that path and got me into it. So, I owe him a lot for that because that was a big help.
Yeah. Yeah. Moving along, I know that you have a coach yourself, but you can talk about his approach and or your approach about building muscle and strength. Like what? How do you approach that as like a weekly thing?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So pretty much the big thing is definitely going to be diet. Training is huge, but having the proper components in place when it comes to diet for building muscle are going to be paramount on your journey. So as I am entering into my off season, what we're doing is just a progressive increase in my calories, and a lot of that is coming through increasing my carbohydrates. So I
Okay.
already keep protein pretty high. I keep the fat at bay because you want to be building size, but you don't want it to be bad size.
Yeah.
So that continuous increase to where you're at a good level where you're still building, but it's good weight.
Yeah. Do you shoot for more like whole foods or do you do a lot of supplements to get your calories in right now? Are you just basically eating whatever as long as it fits inside those things?
So kind of in the off season, I'm a little bit looser with the diet, but overall, I would say I'm still pretty clean. Like my diet's really basic. The big difference between being in season and out of season is if I want to splurge, I'll splurge a little bit as long as it's still staying within my macro protocols. The only supplement that I really use for calorie purposes and filling a macro would be like a whey protein.
Okay. Yeah. Uh, so going back to when you were like a beginner, do you think there's any mistakes that you made or you think beginners make now in the gym?
Yeah, I think a big thing that a lot of people do, especially when they're first starting out, is they kind of see, or they will, especially with social media now, you see somebody that you want to be like, and you
Mm-hmm.
try to instantly emulate what they're doing in the gym and putting that into your own practice. When it's like this person's extremely advanced, like the stuff that they're doing is, specific to them that you don't need to be doing when you're just starting. And oftentimes it could be, more harmful, put you at risk of injury and all, just not some great stuff when it comes to early on in the process.
Yeah, I think right now, a lot of younger people are definitely hopping on some things that we won't talk about, but you know what we're saying. They're
Oh
hopping on
yeah,
things,
PEDs, man.
and
It's
they've barely
the
they've
game.
barely been lifting for a year, and these people have probably been doing it for 5, 6, maybe even 10 years, and then they're finally getting on. Um,
Right,
and they don't, and
especially
they don't, and they
early
don't.
on in somebody's lifting career, man. You hear it all the time about the newbie gains. It's like, dude, you're already anabolic as shit, especially if you're young and your testosterone is peaked through the roof. Like, as long as you get there on a consistent program, you eat good, the gains are going to be through the freaking roof.
Yeah, it's insane. It's insane. Talking about like um the newbie gains, how important is progressive overload and muscle growth? I know, like for strength training and strongman, like what I do, we try to load the bar in exercises every week. Do you still do that in the gym with bodybuilding, or is it more focused on reps or time under tension? Uh, what's your take on that?
Well, I mean, as far as for me personally, it's kind of a combination of all. But when we go to specifically talking about progressive overload, I think for any program, progressive overload is a super important component just because it's a way for you to actually track your progress, engage your progression. So it's like whether you're just doing it through increasing your weight throughout the week. I mean, that way you can physically look back and say, okay, last week on bench press, I did 225. This week I did 235. There is established growth right there that I
Yeah,
can see in front of me. So I think it's super important no matter where you're at fitness wise or fitness level wise.
yeah, I agree. What is the biggest difference between training for aesthetics and performance? Do you think there's any differences in your opinion to how somebody would go about training for aesthetics and or performance?
Yeah, so when it comes to training for performance, I think the training style is pretty different in a sense that I guess it depends on what kind of performance we're talking. If you're training for a specific sport like football, right, you're going to be shifting into stuff that's going to give you explosion, agility work to where you're going to be maybe doing more like power cleans and just things that are more specific to what you're doing. When it comes to building for aesthetics, now we're leaning more so into kind of a hypertrophy based
Yeah.
focus to where it's like, I'm not doing as much overall strength work, but I'm still pushing specific muscle groups to failure. Maybe not as high in the volume, but the intensity is still there because you want to get that stimulus for adaptation.
Yeah. Do you think it's important for someone that's training for performance to do aesthetic training, hypertrophy? So like if you have a football player doing like a let's say heavy sled pushes, because they're on the line, they're pushing people, they need to have that strength in the lower body and the upper body. Do you think they should, after they do, let's say, a heavy sled push, do you think they should go do some lower body or upper body aesthetic work?
I don't think it would be necessary. I think it would be more so personal preference when it comes to that because you don't got to look good to perform good, right? You
Yeah.
could, I mean, you see some pro athletes out there. I mean, they're not extremely jacked, but they're performing at the highest of high levels, and their focus is probably more so on sport specific performance based workouts.
Yeah. I know in the bodybuilding you focus more on the muscle and breaking it down, time under tension. How important is mind muscle connection when you're trying to put on muscle? Do you do a lot of time under tension in your training, or is it just kind of going through the lift and
So Well, when it comes to like tempo style workouts, that's something that I've recently adapted into my programs as of late over the last couple months, and I think it's extremely beneficial, man. It's a different type of stimulus that yields some good results. When it comes to mind muscle connection, that's something I got kind of a differing opinion on it. When I'm
Okay.
doing compound movements, I don't really think too much into the mind muscle connection. I'm really focused on intensity and moving the load.
Yeah,
When
I
it
agree with that.
comes to isolating a specific muscle group, like say a rear delt fly, now mind muscle connection is going to be more of a factor because I'm wanting to hit a specific area. I'm just isolating into the rear delt. So I really want to focus and make sure that the rear delt's working and I'm not engaging other muscle groups.
So if you're doing a specific exercise for, let's say, rear delts, and you're not necessarily feeling it in that muscle, do you continue with that exercise or do you do something else that you would think that would work the rear delts as well?
So for me personally, I mean, there's going to be a few steps that I would take before I would switch the workout. I mean, if I'm doing, say, rear delts on a rear delt fly machine and I'm hitting it and I'm not necessarily feeling it in my rear delt, I'm big on proprioceptive feedback, so I'll get back there and I'll actually touch it and see if it's actually engaging and trying to connect my mind to the muscle group.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I might switch the angle before I actually switch the workout. But if I'm trying a new workout and I'm not feeling it where I think I should be feeling it, I might work something else in that situation.
Okay. Yeah, that's good to know. There might be some people out there that might not even think about changing, you know, how you're the arm length or touching or anything like that. I mean, you could
Right.
also in a compound movement, you could also video yourself and see, different things that are going to pop up.
100%.
So yeah, that's good. That's a good cue for somebody that could be listening to if they're not feeling a certain muscle on an exercise, they should, at least play around with it and see if they can
Right.
achieve what they're trying to do.
Another thing too, when it comes to like if you're not feeling it in a certain muscle group, one thing that I do, and it was big for me with lats, I had an extremely difficult time engaging my lats. So I had to step things way back and lower my weights like significantly down and just go through the motion slow and just see, okay, now I'm feeling it here. I might not be putting a lot of intensity in it, but I'm feeling it where I need to be feeling it. And then I worked my way back up,
Yeah.
kind of a slow progression to where I could still feel it. And that really helped me out a lot.
I bet at that time when you finally lowered the weight and you were actually squeezing it, you probably felt super sore for that first time that you did it. It's like, damn, that's what my lats are supposed to feel like. And
Absolutely.
then that's when you slowly add the weight and
Hmm.
you get stronger lats. And that's awesome.
Yeah, I think I was doing lat pull downs at like 100 pounds for sets of 20, just feeling it out. And yet, like you said, I woke up the next day like, holy shit, dude.
Yeah.
Pull
Yeah.
myself up.
So as of right now in your training, what's your workout split look like?
So right now my split is I'm kind of in a push pull leg with additional day that's kind of like a delt arm day. It's bi-weekly, so it shifts. So, as far as like on my pull day, week one, I'm doing kind of upper back movements versus on week two, it's going to be more so focused on like mid to lower back. But definitely the push pull leg, kind of throwing a lot in and kind of a 4-day split.
Okay. Are you doing a lot of cardio right now in your off season, or is that not really the focus?
Not a ton, dude. It's I do low intensity walking on the treadmill. So like 3.5 speed for, 25, 30 minutes. I try to get it in 5 times a week if time permits,
Yeah.
but that's kind of the baseline.
What are your thoughts on training to failure? Is it absolutely necessary for gaining muscle, or is it overrated in that aspect?
I think it's to me, I think it's super necessary, especially in terms of somebody who's just getting started, because when you instruct them to live till failure, right? This is kind of leaning somebody into this area where they're going to push it harder than they're normally pushing it. Because I think one area where people struggle is actually finding that point of failure. So when somebody's going through a workout and they're hitting it, it's like, oh man, like this got super tough. And then they call it quits. And it's like, okay, well, you still probably had 4 to 5 more reps in you. And that's where you really start driving that stimulus.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, man, I try to go within 1 to 2 reps of failure on pretty much most of my lifts.
Is that mechanical failure or muscular failure? Or do you keep both in mind?
I keep both in mind.
Okay.
So in my specific program, when I start to reach mechanical failure, then I start working into partial reps,
Okay.
right? And then
Yeah.
then I lead into muscular failure.
Yeah. Can you describe kind of, let's use the leg extension for example, like what you or how you would um do partial reps after your set. So if someone's listening uh and they're like, well, I would just stop at 15 reps if it started to burn. Can you explain what the partial reps would do?
Right. So if I'm looking at my workout and my sets, 15 reps on the leg extension and I hit it and I'm going through it. Well, first off, I want to make sure that the weight that I'm selecting is going to take me pretty close to failure at my 15th rep, right? So even if I burn out at 14, that's cool because I'm still reaching pretty close to that point of failure. But once I hit that point, if I have partial reps till failure listed on my workout, well, now I might not be able to get full extension on the leg extension, but if I can still drive it up halfway, well, I'm going to keep pushing it halfway until I reach complete muscular failure to where it's like, I can't move the weight at all.
Okay. You can't even
Like
move it off you
I'm
can't even
like,
move it
okay,
off the machine.
right. Like I'm dead. I'm toast.
Yeah. So then when you're doing those things, those kind of techniques, do you use drop sets or do you superset anything currently?
I do on a few workouts. So in my specific workout that I'm following right now, the sets that I have that I'm supersetting, I'm not pushing those with partials till failure, right? I'm trying to extend into the top of my rep range before jumping into my next workout. I think when it comes to doing a superset, you really got to start keeping, fatigue in mind, right? Like I don't want to burn out and hit partial reps till failure on a curl and then just be completely gassed when I jump up going into say like an overhead tricep extension. So I'm still going to push it hard, but I'm still leaving some in the tank so I can hit the second workout in that superset. But I do superset drop sets. They kind of bounce around a little bit within my workout.
Do you think bodybuilders should train for absolute strength or is it unnecessary?
Got my dog excited over here. He's
Jeez.
like, "What's that?" I don't think bodybuilders need to train for absolute strength. Reason being is because if you think about it from a judge's perspective, when he's looking up on the stage, he's not going to look at a specific athlete and say, okay, let's move him to center stage because he's probably got a bigger squat than this guy. Absolute strength does not translate into overall physique. So I don't think it's necessarily the most important factor when it comes to training for bodybuilding.
Okay. I want to touch a little bit on some nutrition and dieting right now. What does your daily diet look like right now? I know you said that you kind of eat the same things all the time, but how does that look right now?
So right now, man, it's plain Jane. I eat a lot of chicken, ground turkey, in the morning, cream of rice, oatmeal, bananas, blueberries, whey protein. I mean, it's pretty freaking simple. My variety comes from changing up sauces, whether it be a
Okay.
buffalo sauce or a buffalo sauce. That's where my differential is.
Okay. That's crazy. Some people would hear that and they're gonna be like, "Oh my gosh, that sounds so awful."
I
But
know. I know it's
but
not for everybody, man. It's
yeah,
not for
yeah.
everybody.
What are the most common nutrition mistakes people make when trying to build muscle?
I think the biggest mistake people make when trying to build muscle is just not eating enough. I think, especially if somebody's been lean for a while, then all of a sudden they shift gears and they want to go into a bulk. As soon as they start losing some of that, some of them cuts, they switch out of their bulk and they cut their calories down. I mean, you need to be in a surplus for a good amount of time to actually build muscle.
How much of a surplus like would you recommend someone being in? 500 calories, 1,000, or
Um,
not that much?
I think 1,000 might be on the high end, depending on how aggressive you want to go.
Yeah.
Once you start getting 1,000 calories over your maintenance level, I think you're kind of putting yourself in a position to be building some fat, which some people don't mind. But I think for a pretty good base, I mean, 250 to 500 calories over your maintenance, and kind of see how you're gaining weight. If you're gaining, zero point 0.5 pounds in a week is extremely good when
Yeah.
it comes to growth. So kind of just depends on where somebody wants to go and how aggressive they want to take it.
Are there any foods or supplements you swear by for muscle growth? I know you said you talk a lot or speak highly of whey protein. Is that your main?
Whey protein is definitely a key component in my diet. I also take creatine monohydrate. I think it's a pretty good staple that everybody can take, inexpensive option to help with, performance recovery, all the good stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a go-to flavor for protein right now?
Salted caramel, baby. I
Salted
am a
caramel.
salted caramel guy. I eat the shit out or drink the shit out of those shakes. But it also helps me because I don't eat a lot of sweets. So it's kind of like my sweet treat away from my normal, chicken, rice, turkey type diet.
Gotcha. Do you always drink it, or do you ever try and mix it with anything
Yeah, I
else?
mix it in my oatmeal.
Okay.
I'll mix it in my oatmeal with honey. I mean, it consistency and taste wise, it's just like another little treat that I like to eat.
Okay, that's a good tip. Never thought about adding it to oatmeal.
Oh yeah.
What's your opinion on cheat meals? Are they necessary, or do you think it's kind of just an excuse? If I guess it would depend on if you're prepping for something or if you have what am I trying to say?
What are you trying to say, my
I
dude?
know. Like someone that hasn't been training very long and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to have a cheat meal." Do you think that kind of throws them off, or do you think it's necessary that they should have a cheat meal?
I think there's a lot of variables that it depends on. So say you are, training for something specific and you are cutting and your performance in the gym starts dropping, your energy levels start dropping, your weight starts to plateau. Throwing in a well-timed cheat meal can really help spike the metabolism up, get some carbs and some fats back in the system to really amp your workouts up. I'm not saying do it on a weekly basis. Again, when it comes to a specific event you're training for, it's got to be well timed and calculated out within your regular diet. When it comes to just the everyday person, I kind of look at it like this. If I have somebody and they're trying to follow a diet, right, and they're struggling to adhere to that diet, even if it's just macronutrients, and they're trying to get more specific, but they keep falling off, giving somebody a cheat meal and allowing them that freedom and autonomy to pick something for themselves might help them stay on track more than if they were to try to follow something specific for 7 days straight. So it's like, if one cheat meal is going to keep you on track for the other 6 days, I'm absolutely going to throw it into the mix.
Yeah, that's kind of like human nature. Like you say, "Hey, you can't have this," and then that's all that person craves is that thing that you said they can't have.
100%, man. The hunger cravings start coming in. It's like, okay, I'm going to cave anyways. It's like, well, then let's work this into your diet.
Perfect. We're going to go to some supplements. We know that whey protein is your go-to for multiple things. Do you currently take a pre-workout, or do you think, or if you do you think it's super essential, or do you think it's a lot of marketing?
So I do take a pre-workout. I'm pre-workout dependent. But I don't think it's necessary. Is it helpful? Yeah, it's got a lot of good stuff in it. You got your caffeine, your beta alanine, your citrulline, and those are all going to help with different aspects, with your pump, with buffering out lactic acid. But I think you can still get a crazy good workout without pre-workout. Um, when it comes to me, it's one thing. So like when I drink my pre-workout, it's like it starts the process that I know I'm going to the gym. And it's like it's my catalyst to get me started.
Okay.
So when I need it or not in the workout, that's one thing. But once I drink it, I'm like, okay, it's go time.
Do you drink pre-workout by itself, like just the pre-workout, or do you mix anything else into it, like a pre-workout shake?
No, I drink mine straight.
Okay. I'm the total opposite. I have like five other things added to mine.
What are you adding in?
I have like pre-workout, so all the caffeine, citrulline, all that, and then I add 2 scoops of carbs.
Okay.
Then I add electrolytes and BCAs, and then I add a pump product depending on what workout I'm doing that day. So if I have like an upper body, if I have like a heavy log press, I'll uh, do that. And then after that, my accessory work is a lot of like hypertrophy stuff. So I'm really trying to chase the pump in those things. So that's why I add the pump to that pre workout.
I've added some additional pump stuff, so pump supplements to my pre-workouts in the past if I have them on hand. I don't always get the pump factor stuff. I do a separate carb blend, and sometimes I'll do that mid-workout,
Yeah.
or I also have another carb blend that I do after my workout. But I mean, I've been old school just doing like, sweet tarts in the workout
Yeah,
carbs.
those are good. Those are good.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Rice Krispies. Rice Krispie treats or bananas, and with some honey in there too, because that's kind of what I eat during competition. So
Right.
I try to mimic, after I do a set of something, try to eat something like that and see how my stomach reacts. Like, hey, okay, that gives me some sustained energy. I can have that for my competition, because we have time in between events and stuff like
Oh
that.
yeah. Yeah, that's a good way to go about doing it.
If you could only take three supplements, what would they be?
Ooh, man. Mary kill. If I could only take three, creatine definitely, just because it's backed by so much research and it's just kind of a staple. I've taken it forever. I'm just looking at what I take the most of. Um, Creatine number one, whey protein number two, because my protein intake throughout the day is like 260 grams, and getting that through Whole Foods
It's tough.
is tough. That's tough. So whey protein, I get probably about two shakes a day. My third would have to be it would be a toss up between my green supplement and my regular multi or my nutrient mix. That's a tough call, man. I might have to throw the green supplement as my number three just because it's also blended with digestive enzymes. And currently, right now, I'm over 4,000 calories a day. So that shit sits pretty heavy.
Yeah.
Like to break that down and to absorb the nutrients a little bit quicker that's huge.
Have you ever taken a GDA supplement?
I have not.
Okay.
Is that something
I,
that you work in?
I have started taking it just because I'm kind of in an off season. So my next competition, I can be up to 230 pounds, and I usually walk around at like 202. So like I have a huge leeway to put on some weight. So before like I have like a pizza or anything, I'll take some GDA to kind of scoop up all that glucose and sugar and all that carb in the
Yeah,
pizza,
no,
or rice or something. So that's, and it, kind of shells it where it needs to be, and make sure you don't put on a whole lot of fat when you eat that kind of stuff.
so for me, I've always stayed pretty freaking lean as far as being concerned with putting on too much excess fat, man. It's never been a huge concern. So I've never really leaned into supplements that have kind of, really monitored or controlled my fat gain.
Mm-hmm.
So GDA, maybe I'll try it one day, maybe in the
Yeah.
future.
Yeah. Try it for a couple weeks and see how it goes. First form's got a good GDA.
I lean all first form, man. I think you've probably seen that, man. I
Yeah.
post a lot of stuff on first form.
Yeah. Well, I got the supplement superstore hat right here. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. How important is sleep for muscle growth and fat loss?
Crucial. It is 100% crucial. I mean, when it comes to muscle growth, sleep is where all the good stuff happens. I mean, that's where your growth hormone release is at its highest. That's where your testosterone is releasing at the highest level. So getting, if you can get 7 to 9 hours, I mean, that's going to be
Huge.
absolutely, yeah, huge. I mean, this one area where I struggle a lot with my job on the railroad working on call. And I'm like, dude, if I could get more sleep, I mean, these gains would be through the roof.
Yeah.
Um, when you're not getting enough sleep in, though, you're going to release more cortisol. And when you're releasing more cortisol in your body's going to be prone to holding on to more fat. So when it comes to fat loss, that's going to be a huge issue.
Yeah. And there's been some research that's come out that with the higher cortisol and not sleeping, your appetite increases and you have more like sweet cravings for that next following day or two, just because your
Right.
body's under that stress.
Right. Yeah. I think when once sleep's low, it shows that your ghrelin hormone increases and leptin decreases. So it's like now I'm more hungry and I've got more cravings. And it's tough combo. Tough
Yeah.
combo to deal with, especially if you're in a cut.
Yeah. And on the performance side, athletes that get less sleep are more likely to get injured too. There's been research on that. If you have 2 less hours of sleep than you normally get, or you're supposed to get, then you have a 50% more chance of getting injured. And then it just keeps going up with the
Yeah,
less
that's
sleep you
wild.
get. The less sleep you
That's
get.
wild.
What are your top tips for optimizing recovery? Are there any certain things that you do, maybe during work, that you do to kind of stay on track?
So kind of what we just touched on, definitely getting your sleep in. Going to be huge for recovery. I think prioritizing nutrition is also just a staple when it comes to recovery. Then I think another big thing is managing your stress level. Being stressed out is makes it extremely difficult to recover. So keeping your stress under control, even on your off days from lifting weights, if you throw in like an active recovery day where you're working mobility and stretching, I mean, these are going to increase your performance and help you with recovery, kind of pushing some blood back into maybe some achy muscles.
Yeah. My coach has been having me do a lot more walking and stuff on off days and that just my legs are sore after a leg day. He's like, all right, let's go for a walk, get the blood flowing. And then it's like that first little bit is a pain in the ass. It's like, oh, my
Oh
legs
yeah,
are sore, but then the blood gets moving. You don't even think about your legs anymore, and they're good to go. So
right. And that I would say another thing too when it comes to recovery that I think is overlooked by a lot of people is just listening to your body. I
yeah,
think if you're hurting, like you just got to listen to your body. Like, it might not be a programmed rest day, but if you're sore as shit, it might be best sometimes to throw an extra day in there.
yeah. How do you stay disciplined with training and diet when your motivation is low?
It's tough. And I think a lot of people deal with it, man. It's
Yeah.
tough. In these last couple of weeks, my motivation has been super low. But I think I had read a quote, and I forget who said it, but it went like, I didn't come this far just to come this far. So really reflecting back at everything you've done up into this point, and it's like, dude, I've busted my ass for a long time to get to where I'm at, whether that's in a weight loss journey, whether that's in whatever phase you're in a competition. And you just got to look back and say, am I ready to throw it all out the window because my motivation's not here? So that's big for me, man. It's like I'm always moving forward. I always want to just keep pushing. Even if I don't feel like going to the gym, one thing that helps me is just getting there.
Yeah.
Once I get there and I get moving, it's like, okay, now I'm back in the rhythm.
Yeah. I think that's sometimes hard when people have home gyms. They're like, oh, I'll just do it later. I'll just do it later. And then something comes up and they just never go. Sometimes that drive is like the thing that gets you ready to go.
Absolutely, man. I've got a decent little setup in my garage, but like you said, like every once in a while, I'll get a freaking awesome lift in there. But for the most part, it's like, oh, yeah, I got to run inside real quick and just check this out. Oh, I got to use the bathroom. And it's like you're inside and distraction after distraction after distraction.
Yeah. Definitely helps when you have to drive somewhere, or if you have a workout partner, that helps too. You don't want to let somebody down if they're waiting
Absolutely.
on you or counting on you.
Right. Right. That's, I mean, a good reason to work with a coach, man. You get that accountability.
Yeah, I actually had my brother said something to me the other day. He's like, "Why do you have a coach when you're a coach?" It's like, so how would you go about that? What would you say how important that is for a coach to have a coach?
Well, I think it's good when you're doing something and you're down in the thick of it. It's good to see a different perspective by somebody that's out of the weeds, right? They're looking down at everything, and you might not always notice something that you're doing that a fresh set of eyes can pick up on. And it's
Yeah.
like, why have you been doing this way for this long? And then you're like, I don't know. I guess I never really thought about it.
Yeah, I didn't know there was another way.
Yeah, like what's a better route to do this in? So you've got that aspect, a fresh perspective, and then like you said, with a workout partner, man, you just have the accountability. It's like when you have to check in once a week with somebody, it's like, okay, I know this date's coming up and like I don't want to let this person down. So you're gonna be more inclined to do the things you need to do.
Yeah, you're going to get your shit together.
Yep.
Yeah. How do you help clients who struggle with motivation? I know you do some online stuff, so how do you kind of work with somebody through the technology stay motivated?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely varies person to person, man. People are motivated through different ways. I like to kind of walk it back to see, what was the original purpose that they started doing this for? What's their why? Why did they get into this from the get-go? Okay. And, motivation isn't something that you're going to rely on because it is fleeting. It's always going to come. It's always going to go. So figure out why they got started, man, kind of refresh them and bring them back to that. And then figure out, why is the motivation falling off? what has changed in your regular routine that was different than before? Is the workout, is it getting boring to you? Are you getting tired of the diet that you're on? And then maybe trying to spark motivation by changing some things up within their program. Or, like I said, with the diet, if somebody's getting bored with the monotony of eating the same shit all the time, let's plug a cheat meal in, man. Let's kind of like re-spark things however we can.
Yeah.
So talking them through it, and then just being encouraging and just letting them know that you're on their team and getting back to it.
Yeah. Do you feel like that has usually helps? Like that's like a pretty easy fix for most people.
It varies, man. I mean, it kind of just depends on the person.
Okay.
People can get really down on themselves, man, and it can be a dark place that they have a hard time getting out of. And it might take a little bit more from a coaching perspective to really help them get out of that. But some people, man, they're quicker with it. It's like they might have gotten down about X, Y, or Z. You talk to them about it, the next day they're right back at it. So it just definitely depends on the person.
Yeah. Feels like sometimes you just need to talk with it to somebody and you feel a little bit better about, everyone's going through shit. That's life. So
Yeah, yeah, most
so
definitely.
what's one piece of advice you wish every gym goer would follow?
One piece of advice every gym goer would follow. I would say that's a tough one. Don't try to don't try to compare yourself to people around you, man. Um, I think everybody's journey is different, and you never know, what someone's gone through to get to that place, all the work that they're putting in. So a lot of times people come in, like we were talking about earlier with social media, and it's like, I want instant results and I want them now. But it's like that person that you're comparing to has been putting in work for 20 years. So
Yeah.
it's like, don't compare yourself to others, man. Focus on your own journey and, take it one day at a time.
Yeah. What's one thing you push forward? What keeps you pushing forward in your career and in your training?
What pushes me keeping forward in my career and in my training. So, when it comes to my training, I like to kind of set myself a target to aim for. So, right now, being kind of in the bodybuilding realm, I'm going to be getting back on stage. So, I'm a competitive person, man, and I know I'm going to be going up against people that have been putting in just as much work, if not more than me, over the last few months. So, it's like, I think about those people that might be working harder than me, and it's like, okay, I got to be working harder than that person. And that keeps me driven to pump it hard as shit in the
That's a
gym.
huge thing.
Yeah.
That's a huge thing. Do you follow anybody that you compete against? And like, do you follow, like, I know that we just talked about like not comparing yourself, but do you follow the people that you like will compete against and like follow their journey to see like, oh, maybe he's doing that. I'm going to do this. You kind of compare,
Um,
do you compare that way? Because there's some lifters that like I compete against and I follow them. I'm like, oh, he only did that much weight. I did this much weight this week. So I'm ahead of him on that. Or, you
so
know,
for
just
me,
those like little mind games, like, oh, he did that. I'm way behind on that. I need to get my shit together. Do you do anything like that?
kinda in a sense, but for me, it's I don't follow a lot of people that I directly compete against, but I follow a lot of the pro guys, like Ryan Terry and
Yep.
Ali Bilal. And I kind of put myself in a bad position because I'll be comparing myself to them. I'm like, dude, man, I got work to do. Like, look at these motherfuckers out
Yeah.
here. It's like these guys are the top of the top in the league.
Yeah.
So
Ryan Terry's crazy.
crazy, but it's like
Crazy.
their goals, man.
What's your advice for people struggling with self doubt in the gym?
Struggling with self-doubt, man. I think when it comes to self-doubt, you got to really practice not being so hard on yourself, man, because we're all going through some shit. We're all on different journeys, man. We might not be exactly where we want to be, but we're not going to get there if we're always kind of, pitying ourselves and like, beating ourselves up. It's you got to maintain your focus on what you want to accomplish and you got to take it one step at a time. So when it comes to that self-doubt, dude, it's just it's tough. It's tough to get out of for some people,
Yeah.
but you have to figure out, what ways work best for you, whether that's kind of, disconnecting from things and taking some time to yourself where you're not thinking about whatever it is that you're doubting. Um, just whatever works best for somebody and really keen in on that. I mean, maybe you got to meditate a little bit.
Yeah. How do you balance work, training, in your personal life, and then how do you balance being a father and all the time at the gym?
So work, training, being a dad, it is a tough combo with my current job because so I've got my job on the railroad, which requires a tremendous amount of my time. I work on call. I travel out of town and stay in hotels a lot. I do the online fitness business as well and work with several clients. And then, I try to train for about 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours, at least 5 times a week. And then I got to have time for everything else that comes with being a dad.
Yeah.
Uh, so I make time for what's important. And for me, number one is going to be being a parent. So when I have my son with me, I mean, that's where my focus is at. I'm doing things with him. I'm working out while he's at school. Um, when it comes to my work, as far as on the railroad, that's my job. That's my income.
Yep.
So when duty calls, that's when I have to go into work. That's when I have to put the time in there because, I want to keep a roof over our head and I want to, be able to
Yeah.
give my son all the things that he wants. So as far as doing the online coaching business, that was something I added on top of all that. So wherever I can fit that in, I fit that in.
Yeah.
Busy schedule, but I make it work.
Yeah. But he's got to be probably the biggest motivator of all.
100%. 100%, man. He's my training partner.
Yeah.
He's my other coach.
Yeah. I know. I see you guys. I see your post. You guys are at the home gym, getting it in.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Love that. Love that. We're going to try and get a little trendy, a little hot takes here. Are there any fitness trends you think are complete nonsense?
Complete nonsense. I think I don't know if this would be considered a trend, but I think just, any like fad diet that people are trying to push for extremely fast results, lose 20 pounds in the next 30 days. I think all that stuff is just complete trash, man. People trying to scam you for money.
Yeah. There's a lot of those out there. What's
Yeah.
one thing you wish the fitness industry would change?
Oh God, that I think the fitness industry would change. That's a tough question, man. I think a lot of the big box gyms, this might rub some people the wrong way. I think they need to set a higher standard on the people that they bring in as personal trainers. I've been
Ooh.
to a lot of gyms where like I see people and it's just like the culture that they create. They're sitting on their cell phones, they're not doing the things that I think going from, I went through Mike Trotter's program and he's got a pretty high standard for what he instilled in us to be a good personal trainer.
Yeah.
I see some of these guys and it's like they're sitting there and they're just like distracted, having conversations with other people. I think there needs to be a higher standard set on how trainers conduct themselves in the gym.
I love that. Love that. What's the biggest misconception people have about bodybuilding?
Biggest misconception. I think people outside of the bodybuilding community kind of look at it as this like roughneck group of people, man, that are like hard-headed and just like all about lifting weights when in reality it's like, dude, it's a good group of people. I mean, you get in there, it's a lot of genuine people that want to help other people and they're super nice, man. It's like once I got into the community, I was like, dude, this is actually like really cool to be a part of.
Yeah. That's kind of how strongman is.
Yeah, I
They
bet.
like these big guys, you're like, man, that person can lift 1,000 pounds. That guy's got to be a dick. You
Right,
like you like
right.
go up to him and it's like
Big
you
tech.
yeah, big teddy bear. You like immediately friends. It's like what the heck just happened?
Absolutely, man. Yeah. So I think that's a real common misconception.
For someone new into the gym, what's one piece of advice you'd give them to stay in shape for their life?
I think the number one piece of advice I would give somebody is you gotta stay consistent. You gotta stay consistent and just do the little things, man. Make it to the gym, at least 4 to 5 times or 4 times a week. Follow your diet. The longer somebody can stay consistent to something, the better the results are going to be.
All right, we're gonna go on to a little bit of contest prep. I know that
Ooh,
you good?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. I know that you just competed, and that was what December
Yes, sir.
of last year.
Sir.
Uh, that was your first time, correct?
First time.
First time. So we're gonna go a little bit about that journey. What motivated you first to compete in bodybuilding? I know that you were a trainer. When you were training, did you do just bodybuilding, or were you into like Had you focused on powerlifting or anything like that before, or were just
So,
more hypertrophy based?
so when I was kind of in the peak of my training career, I didn't really have a specific focus I was on. I just like to be in good shape. I just enjoyed throwing weights around. I wasn't training for any specific competitions. Um, I did work with a few people that jumped on stage, and the idea was always kind of in the back of my head, but I was like, nah, not really for me. As I got older, well, just up until like a year and a half ago, I did a race. I did a half marathon Spartan race, right? I was like, I need to re-spark something in me. And I was like, that drive is kind of fading out a little bit. So I entered this race, man. I went into it with very minimal training, but I was like, this is going to be a mental challenge just to see how far I can push myself. So I beasted it out, got it done. And afterward, I was like, what's next?
Yeah.
I always wanted to do some bodybuilding.
And bodybuilding it
On
was.
stage. So that was kind of the next thing on my fitness bucket list.
Sweet.
We are.
Can you walk us through your experience through your prep?
Yeah. So,
Ups and downs, highs,
so I,
lows.
when I first jumped in, prior to that race, I was already kind of putting myself through a summer cut. I was trying to get a little bit lighter because I knew I was going to be running a lot. So when I linked up with a coach, I was at about 190 pounds. We were 6 months out. So he was like, we don't need to jump into a prep for several months. So first thing we're doing is flipping gears and we tried to start putting weight on. So we slowly started working my calories up. Before I went into my prep, I was at about 600 carbs a day, 270 grams of protein at about 60 grams of fat. So putting down a pretty considerable amount of food. I got up to about 205. And then we shifted gears about, I think it was about 10 weeks out. And then from that point on, it was just kind of slowly walking the carbs back, really leaning out, increase the cardio up a little bit, all the way up until we got into my peak week. And then that's when things, or just before peak week, that's when things really started to shift as far as massive calorie drop,
Yeah.
massive carb drop, really depleting the system down, and then going through all the fun stuff in peak week.
What would you say was the most difficult part of that prep for you personally?
The most difficult part, I would say the last month, all I really was eating was just like white fish, rice, oatmeal, and I mean, it was super basic. I ate the same thing for mostly every day. I would walk into a freaking Casey's, and when that smell of pizza would hit my nose, it was like everything in my brain would just go nuts. I'm like, holy shit, I got to get out of here, man. Like you could smell things from a mile away. So hunger cravings were through
Yeah.
the freaking roof.
Yeah. Definitely sounds like that would be the hardest part.
Oh yeah. I'm like, God damn, I got to go home and eat a piece of fish.
You couldn't put the fish on the pizza. It wouldn't
Oh man,
count.
I just pretended. I was like, look at this slice of pizza, fish flavored.
So how does your training change when you're in prep and then when you're off season? So how does it look a little bit different now compared to when you were, let's say, October last year before comp?
So I would say is the training didn't look a whole lot different. The intensity was still there. I was still pushing hard. My training really didn't change up until I would say probably like mid-November. We
Okay.
pulled back a little bit on the volume. Wasn't quite pushing everything all the way up until failure. Really trying to hold on to the size that I had, not cause too much inflammation, and not really deplete out all my glycogen stores going into my peak week.
Yeah. Can you describe for someone what you mean by glycogen stores?
Yeah, so when you eat carbohydrates, your body puts them, towards your liver or stores them in your muscle or stores them as body fat. So when you're working out, your body needs energy. So it starts to pull the glycogen stores from your muscles and converts them over into glucose in the bloodstream, which eventually gets transferred into adenosine triphosphate, ATP, and for immediate energy. So when you work out, you're depleting those stores in your muscles,
Yeah.
right? When you get done with the workout, well, your body wants to refill those glycogen stores, and that's what creates that full look in your muscles. So when you eat carbs after a workout, your body converts the glucose that you put into the bloodstream back into store them in your muscles as glycogen.
Yeah. As you would say, the sweet tarts.
The sweet tarts. Yep.
ignition,
Ignition.
and
Yep.
creatine. All those things are
All that stuff.
for energy and going to be stored in your muscles.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why when I hear a lot of people, they're like, "Oh man, I'm on carnivore." I'm like, "How do you do it? How do you do it, man? Oh my goodness."
When did you start posing practice during prep? How soon? Or did you do it like super often? Since you're kind of new
So,
to it, did you?
yeah, I started my posing practice just before I went into prep. Honestly, I probably wish I would have started sooner, man. I didn't put a whole lot of emphasis into it. I was like, I can usually pick up on stuff pretty quick. And then I started doing it. I was like, this is harder than it looks. So I worked with an online coach, Josh Matali, Josh X Mata on Instagram. Dude is super freaking good. Works with a lot of guys online. And I would work with him once a week all the way up until my show date.
Okay. What's so hard about it? Just like the static holding in, or is it just finding the perfect tilt, roll, anything like that?
I think a combination of all of it. Excuse me. So initially, it was just getting the poses, man. I look at like my first practices when I was posing, and I'm like, dude, I looked like a freaking idiot. Like they were so bad, but like to me, I'm like, this is what it feels like I see them doing. So he was in there and kind of adjust me, like we're different positions of like my arms and how to lean back into it for like my back pose and where my hand placement needs to be. So there's that aspect of actually just getting the poses and the angles down that the judges want. So everything we did was from the perspective of where the judges would be sitting, and they're kind of down in front of you. So
Hmm.
it's like, you want to be leaning forward so your body looks squared up to the judges that are
Yeah.
below. And then it's the static holds of all of it. So when you're doing your front pose, just sitting there, exhaling out, you've got no air left in you, trying to, squeeze your abs, flare your lats. That was the tough part.
Yeah. I've watched some videos with Hani Rambod, like having C-Bum go through all that, like all of his poses, and he's like, "This shit's hard. Like
It's
how
hard, man.
how how long you got to hold it." And it's
Yeah.
just huge props to you guys.
So one thing that we would do is we would go through my routine, and then at the end of our session, I would sit there for 30 seconds, front pose, hold it, you're smiling, trying to squeeze
That's probably
it.
gonna be the hardest part is smiling.
Yeah, it is, man, because you're wanting to breathe, but you're trying to keep your abs tight. So we'd hold it for 30 seconds, then we'd flip and we'd do the back pose, hold that for 30 seconds, and we'd do that like 4 times back to back to back to back to back. And you're
That's your
like,
superset right there. That's your cardio.
gassed.
That's your cardio.
It was, man. It was tough.
So how do you approach, you're trying to get body fat down super low, so fat loss down. How do you preserve your muscle during the prep?
So the big thing with muscle preservation is definitely just keeping the protein high. Um, I mean, I think that is the number one most crucial aspect when you're on a low calorie diet because you're not in a mode anymore where your body's building, right? So your body's trying to utilize the calories that you're putting in elsewhere just to get through your daily function. So in order to not break down muscle, you want to be getting, an adequate amount of protein in. That's why, so I kept it up at like 260, 270 grams a day.
Okay. When you're doing that, are there any like micronutrients that you really focus on taking during a prep?
When I was in my prep, I stayed on my creatine. I took vitamin D and K. I took fish oil and God, I'm trying to think if there was another one I was taking. Those for sure were just kind of like my daily general health type
Yeah.
uh, vitamins that I took.
Yeah. Do you take anything like for joints, anything for heart, anything for inflammation, like specifically for those things? Or is it, do you think the main micronutrients help with those things?
Outside of just like a regular micronutrient mix, I mean, I didn't take anything outside of that.
Okay.
Trying to think back and pull up some of my preps. Oh, I took essential amino acids.
Okay.
Other than that, that's all I took, man. I
All
was
right.
looking at my little prep sheet.
So
That
for
was
peak week, can you kind of walk us through what the week looked like from like the very beginning to the the night before?
I'm gonna pull up my peak week prep sheet that I had,
Sweet.
kind of walk through it. So starting my peak week, man, my carbs were at 250 grams.
Okay.
They were lower in there. Protein was at 270. My fats were at 45. Cut out all carbonated drinks, cut out my essential amino acids. I ran my carbs at 250 grams for 3 days. And then I started working them back up about 50 grams per day for the next 4 days. Slowly pulled the protein back as I brought my carbs up. Went from 270 down to 250, down to 225, down to 200.
Okay.
Cut out all sweeteners, all sugar-free products, all green, leafy, fibrous veggies. So most of the fiber was completely out of the diet. Then we got to about 2 days out. So now it was like, let's get the body carb back up. So carbs went up to 500 grams. I think that's what we had. Yeah, carbs were at 500 grams. Protein was down to 185 grams, but we cut out all whey protein. No more artificial proteins in there. That was all just straight from Whole Foods. 1 day out, my carbs were at 575 grams, protein down to 170, bumped my fats up to 65 grams, while sodium throughout the entirety of that was between 5 and 5.5 grams.
Where does water come into that? Do you do anything with water?
Yep. So I kept my water at about a gallon a day still.
Okay.
I didn't deviate too far from that. On the last day, I went up to 150 ounces of water. Let's see. Yeah. Well, no, on the 2 days I was at 150 ounces. Then I went back down to 128 ounces, and I stopped drinking all fluid the day before my show at 8:30 p.m. to start drying out.
Okay. Sounds like hell.
It was an intensive process. Like I said, it was
Yeah.
my first time going through it, man. So I kind of just followed what my coach told me.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's about all you can do.
Cleaned out pretty hard.
Yeah.
Show day morning of 45 grams of protein for breakfast, 120 grams of carbs, 12 grams of fat, a little bit of salt. Mid morning, I had 80 grams of carbs and just rice cakes with another half gram of pink sea salt. And then 20 minutes before stage, I ate 2 Reese's cups, 2 rice cakes, and had 2 big ass pinches of pink sea salt and started to pump on.
Nice. I know during prep, it takes a lot of mental fortitude, really tough on your body and on your mind. How do you handle the emotional and psychological challenges?
During prep.
Yeah.
So, man, it was the biggest thing that I noticed as I got kind of deep into my prep was that when the food went down, I started getting kind of irritable. So I would go to the gym and there would be people wanting to come up and have these conversations, and I was just like triggered. I'm like I just got to get my workout in. Like I'm fucking tired. I don't want to talk right now. And it got to a point where I was like, man, I need to switch gyms. So I switched from crunch to anytime because there wasn't as many people and it was easier for me to focus. So I guess when it comes to handling it, that was to me the best means of fixing that problem in the moment. I was like, I just need my space.
Yeah. I've been to crunch in the evenings and it's insane.
Crazy. I was about to rip some heads off.
Hopefully I wasn't one of those people when I saw you at crunch that one day I talked to you. Hopefully that wasn't the day you wanted to rip somebody's head off.
No, man. No, maybe. Who knows?
I'll be sure to stay away next time if you're getting closer to December.
I'm just playing, man. Yeah, I mean, I wasn't too crazy. I like to have, uninterrupted, pure focus, just to get what I needed to get done. Because outside of the gym, I was still working my regular job. So sometimes I was really time restricted. So if
Yeah.
I only had an hour to get into the gym to get my workout done, and my workouts generally run an hour and a half, you throw in a couple 10-minute conversations and you're cutting out a significant chunk of the shit that you want to get done.
Yeah.
So
It's
that was
crazy.
the mindset that I had.
Yeah. Gym time seems to go like super crazy. It's like I got an hour to work out. You get there, you do a warm up, you talk to somebody, and it's like, oh man, I only got 30 minutes left now. Like, where the hell did the
Right.
time go?
Right. So with time being a huge factor for me in my day to day, I was like, I just need somewhere where I can get my shit done and get out.
How do you say to someone, hey, have you ever had to have that conversation with somebody like, hey, I gotta get my shit done? Is there a nice way to go about that? Or you're just like you just slip the headphone back on, you're like just walk away, or
Dude, honestly, I think no matter what the situation is, it's always kind of awkward. Like nobody ever wants to be that guy to be like, dude, can you just like leave me alone? I always try to go about it like in a nice way, like, hey man, I got to get this done. But you always run into some people, man, that just like, they can't catch the hint.
Yeah.
And that sucks. But I mean, if you got to be a little bit firm, you got to be a little bit firm.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like I can't talk right now. Like I got to get this done. I've only got 20 minutes left. So I don't think to me, I don't think that's wrong at all because you got to respect your time too. And somebody else, if you let them know that you're short on time and they want to keep talking to you, I mean, that's kind of them almost being disrespectful to your time. You
Yeah.
put it out there, you let them know. I think it's perfectly acceptable to let somebody know, like, hey, I gotta stop talking, dude.
Yeah. I feel like some people probably don't understand because they're not getting ready for a show. Like they don't take their training as serious as someone that may be competing. So like,
Mhm.
well, I can just go shoot the shit with you. That's not a big deal. Like you can do that tomorrow or you can do that later.
Right,
They,
right.
they may not, understand like, hey, this actually like means a lot going forward to what I got going on.
Absolutely, man.
Did you experience any post show blues?
I wouldn't say necessarily like post-show blues. The one thing that I noticed probably following my show, it's like you follow something so specific for so long, and then that thing happens, and then you're on the other side, and it's just like this feeling of almost like being lost. It's like, what do I do now? Right? Like I don't have these specific numbers to hit. I don't have this specific goal I'm shooting for. And it's just like kind of this like reality shock that's like, okay, I'm back in like normal living. So the readjustment going from those specifics into just kind of a loose, reverse
Yeah.
diet, big change.
Yeah. So can you kind of go into like certain divisions of bodybuilding and then like kind of your division and then kind of I know you did men's physique, correct?
Yep.
Can you kind of explain what men's physique is compared to let's say classic and like wellness divisions?
Yeah. So I think men's physique is definitely, excuse me. So when somebody's first getting into bodybuilding, men's physique is almost appealing because you're not typically aiming for like this massive size to walk on stage. The legs aren't as showcased. You got the board shorts on. You're really going for kind of the broad shoulders, big back to waist, small waist ratio, and just real defined lean midsection, kind of just all aesthetics. When you start moving up into open, well, now it's like you're wanting to put a little bit more size on. You're really wanting to showcase the legs. That's when you get the little speedo on, and you're showcasing more of your muscle groups in those. And I think men's physique's a good starting point, and a lot of people will start there and then transition into the higher classes.
Yeah. Do you have a goal to go up to a weight class or the open class, or you kind of want to stay in the men's physique for a while?
For right now, I mean, shoot, dude, I'm be 37 this year, so Ms. Physique's cool with me, man. It's a way to get on stage to keep competing. I
Yeah.
haven't had any aspirations to jump into a higher class, but I mean, who knows? We'll see what the future holds.
Yeah. You
Sometimes I
never
get a
know.
little crazy. Maybe I might decide to try it.
Yeah. Excuse me. What's the most important thing someone should know before committing to a contest?
How much fucking money it takes? Oh, boy. I mean, it adds up quick. Not only the money, but just the overall time commitment. So if you're wanting to do a show and you're serious about it, like you got to be locked in for a good amount of time. And then you're investing in your coach, you're investing in the diet, the supplements, the show, the suits, the tan, posing coach. There's a lot of money that goes into it. I mean, I definitely dropped a few $1,000s getting ready for that show and through the show.
Yeah. If someone is just starting out, how should they prepare both mentally and physically for their first show?
How should they prepare mentally and physically? So as far as mentally, when you sign up for the show, you kind of have a general idea of what you're getting into. Like it's going to be kind of rigorous. You're going to be really getting specific on a lot of stuff. So I think keeping that in mind throughout the process is like I knew what I signed up for. And like, yeah, this sucks right now, but this is what I expected when I decided to commit to doing a show. As far as physically, I mean, for me personally, it kind of like we talked about, it goes back to my competitive nature. It's like I'm still busting my ass because now I'm locked into something where I know I'm going up against other people
Yeah.
that are doing the same shit. And it's like, I want to be the best of the best.
Yeah.
So physically locked in to just bust my ass for however long.
Were there any times during your prep, when you were physically exhausted, mentally exhausted, like where you wanted to like back out?
No, I never had any times where I wanted
Okay.
to back out, but there were a lot of times because, like I said, I work on call. So, sometimes I would work from 2 p.m. and get off at 2 a.m. after working 12 hours with an hour drive home. And it's like, dude, I gotta go get my workout in. And it's 3 a.m. I'm fucking beat. I'm low calorie, low carb, and have to like drag my ass to the gym to get that shit done. That was tough.
Yeah, that would be.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
it was difficult.
Little couple final tips here. What's one thing you wish you knew before competing? Is there anything that super surprised you that kind of caught you off guard while during your prep or
Um,
before stepping on stage?
Before competing, God, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Things that surprised me. I think I would definitely say, dude, how difficult the posing was. That was a that caught me off guard, man. Like I said, I wish I would have started doing it sooner because even after doing it for, 8 straight weeks, when I actually got on stage, it's like all that shit went out the window. It's like I had the general idea, but it was like you got like the first time stage jitters and you go out
Yeah.
there. I looked at my posing, I'm like, oh, dude, that looked like trash. So, like, really getting into that early and going through it. So, when you do get on stage, it just comes second nature, like muscle memory, you're locked in.
Yeah. If someone is thinking about competing, how do they know if they're ready?
Man,
Or are you just never ready? You just
I
gotta
was gonna
you just
say,
got
I think it's kind of a now or never type deal. Like, are you ready now? Maybe, maybe not, but you're never gonna know unless you try.
there we go.
Like diving in head first, man.
There it
Committing
is.
to it and rolling out.
Yeah, that's I think we gotta end on that advice right there. You'll never know if you don't go for it.
Hell yeah, bro.
I want to thank Grant for taking the time to be on the podcast today. Where can people follow you at?
They can follow me on Instagram, Mind and Matter Fit. Follow me
Sweet.
there, man. I throw some cool shit up.
Cool. We'll have to get a collab together soon with the lift.
Let's make it happen.
Cool. Thanks for being on the podcast, Grant.
Appreciate you having me, bro.
Yep. I'm going to stop the recording.